McCarthy Insurance Group, serving the community for over 70 years. For home, farm, motor, life, health and business insurance, log on to mig.ie or free phone 1800 50 11 11. Probably your best call in 2024. Charles McCarthy Insurance is trading as McCarthy Insurance Group, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Travel Saturday with Sarah and Ed with Canadian Sky. Fly to the heart of the Canadian Rockies direct from Dublin to Calgary and experience spectacular scenery and vibrant cities. Discover Canada in 2024 with CanadianSky.ie.
Sarah Slattery is flying solo today, literally. Hiya Sarah, how are you?
Hi Trina, how are you?
So Sarah is the travel expert. What are we going to look at today in terms of holiday locations?
Well, I thought since Ed is off flying somewhere, I'd cover island hopping in Greece because I did it last year. And it was something that, I've been to Greece a good few times, but I always wanted to kind of do the iconic Greek island hopping adventure since I think the days of budget travel 25 years ago. I finally got to do it last year and it was absolutely incredible, every bit as magical as I expected. But there's a lot of things I learned along the way, particularly with regard to the ferries and prices and picking islands and things like that. And it's not as straightforward as it sounds.
Okay,
you know?
So do you really need to plan this before you go, or can you kind of island hop as, when you get there, then decide?
No, definitely. I know, maybe if you're 18-year-old and you don't mind, overnight ferries and, hostels and things like that, you might be fine. But if you want to stay in nice accommodation, actually some of the islands, the accommodation is really expensive. If you want to kind of somewhere down near the port or some of the Trenty sunset locations, you really need to book in advance. And everything, even from regard to the ferries, it's really important that you plan, which island you're going to. Because, for instance, Milos is one of our favourite islands. I thought it was incredible. But there was only one ferry that arrived in at 7 o'clock at night, and there was only one ferry that left at 11 o'clock in the morning. So although we had 3 nights there, we only really had 2 days. So it's important to not only plan your islands, but also sort of check the ferry times, because some have 3 and 4 ferries a day, others only have 1.
Right.
And it's important that you know when you're going in and when you're going out.
So you can't you'd be raging, Sarah, wouldn't you now, if you thought that, we can just, take it handy, and then you realise the ferry for that particular day is gone or it's not going to suit you. So there is a bit of planning.
Yeah, and some of the accommodation, we had the kids with us, so you could be talking €300 a night, and you're getting there at 8 o'clock at night and you're leaving at 11 in the morning. There's no point in doing that,
Yeah.
So the prices as well, particularly if you're going in peak season, it's really important that you plan it. I'd also say as well to kind of mix it up. Some of the islands, Paros and Naxos, for instance, would be maybe 2 of the most popular islands, but they're right beside each other. So you could very easily stay in one and just hop across and do a day trip to the other. You wouldn't necessarily have to up sticks and move. So that's another thing to factor in. And also maybe, the big kind of flash islands like Mykonos and Santorini, they're probably the most expensive. They're both kind of obviously very over-commercialised now and loads of crowds, particularly in peak season. I'd say maybe pick one or the other. I would say maybe don't do both. So maybe have your kind of quiet, relaxing spot, have, your flash kind of glitz and glamour, and just mix it up a bit so you get a real taste for all the different islands.
How many islands are there? I'm thinking there was 2 or 3. No?
Well, you see, the Cyclades are the ones I'm kind of talking about, the ones in the centre that most people do the island hopping in. There's 220 of them, would you believe, but there's only 33 that are inhabited. Yeah. But it sounds like a lot of work, and particularly, I suppose, if there's families or people tuning in, there are easier ways to island hop in Greece. You can go to some of the bigger islands, like the Ionian Islands, Corfu, Zakynthos, Kefalonia. They're all together. They're much easier to kind of get around. You can fly directly to Corfu. You can fly directly to Zakynthos now. The same with the likes of Kos or Rhodes, Crete. You can fly direct there and do day trips to some of the other islands. You don't have to do the type of experience I did last year. There are lots of easier ways to do it and cheaper ways to do it. Definitely I would say try and avail of the direct flights if you can, because the ferries, it's not like Mamma Mia, they're not. I think I had this pre-idea, thought I'd be, you don't even get out on deck on most of them. You're stuck in like a sardine in these no air conditioning sweat boxes. They're not like what you think they are. Definitely not.
Okay.
No.
So how long would you need, Sarah, for a trip like this? If you're going to take in, say, the number of islands that you took in, and you might tell us what islands you did.
Yeah, well, we went for 12 nights in total and we did 3 islands. But as I said, I did have the kids with me. So we kind of did it a little bit more leisurely. I mean, if you're a student or you don't mind popping around and you can stay up all night and all that kind of stuff, you could probably do a little bit less. But I would say definitely stay at least 3 nights in each place if you want to see it properly. And places like Milos, for instance, is just so diverse, so much to see. It was a real eye-opener for me. It's not just your pretty seaside villages and trendy kind of shops. And like there was a beach there, Sarakaniko Beach, and it's like they also call it Moon Beach. And I honestly think it was probably one of the most incredible places I've been ever,
And you've been a lot of places.
It was absolutely amazing. There's also a little boat you can actually rent out. You don't have to have a license. Like it's €150 and you can actually take a boat out and go around to like dive spots and snorkeling spots yourself. Like there's so much you can do. We didn't even get to do that on Milos. I nearly want to go back and just do that myself. You can actually fly to a lot of the islands from Athens, and sometimes the flights are nearly as cheap as the ferries, and they're like 30 minutes,
Are these rickety, rusty planes, were they?
Well, yeah. They are the propellers, all right, But then, in saying that, like, there's these winds that, I'm not doing a good job of selling these ferries, am I? There's these winds, they're called Meletmi winds or something like that. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong. In the summer, so it's really windy on the ferries. Like, it would be quite sickening. So if you get seasick, like, I'd much rather be in a propeller plane than being on a boat for 3 hours,
Yeah.
So, and definitely check the prices of both. Because, I mean, the flights are kind of like buses, those internal flights. You just hop on and hop off. Like, it's not, you don't have to be there 2 hours before and all that kind of jazz, So it might be, something to consider when you are pricing ferries, just price the flights as well.
Yeah. Would the islands be big enough now, Sarah? Like, would you need to hire a car when you get there?
Yeah, some of them, it depends, I suppose, but I would suggest hiring a car. Now, we kind of got a bit ripped off in one of the islands because I booked it from here. And then when we arrived, we saw a rate for like €30 a day or something. I think we were paying €100 a day. So some of them they're sort of real local islands. So, if you don't have a set plan and your accommodation is central, I'd say you could maybe just hire a car when you get there and just maybe for a day and go around. But there's loads of boat trips and stuff like that as well. And it's kind of nice to do a boat trip, because you get the whole sunset, the whole Greek feeling. You'll see like these sunset cruises or sailing trips for a couple of hours and they go around different islands. And, I would definitely say you could, do that once or twice during your trip. It was one of our best experiences in Santorini when we did that. And you also get the bird's eye view of the sunset without having to stand in line for 2 hours. So you could, you wouldn't have to hire a car every day, depending on where your accommodation is, I suppose, as well. That's the other side of it.
Yeah. Would this be quite an expensive holiday, Sarah?
Yeah, it was probably one of the most expensive trips we've done now as a family. Now, we did stay in nice places. Now, when I say nice, they were like 4-star. They weren't like 5-star, but they were expensive. And again, I would say mix that up a bit if you can. In Milos, they have these like boat houses, and they're like traditional boat houses that you stay in, and they're just really, really cool. You literally walk out and you walk into the sea. They're like rustic, they're not like luxurious, but they're just so cool. You'll see a lot of them on Airbnb. And then in the likes of Santorini or Paros, the most important thing is probably the location, I'd say, more so nearly than the standard of the hotel. You want to be able to get those kind of, if you're paying that kind of money, you want to be able to see your sunsets. But there are ways around it. You can opt for cheaper accommodation and take trips in, like Santorini, for instance. If you stay in Ia or Fira, like the prices are really high. But there's lots of resorts like Parissa and Kamari down the other side of the island. It's about a half an hour drive away. But they're full resorts, like any holiday resort. But the accommodation is half the price. They don't have those caldera views and all that kind of thing. But you can just go in on the bus or drive in. So there are cheaper ways to do it. But still, I'd say when you're taking the ferries into account and all that, it's not the kind of the cheap holiday you might think it is. Island hopping, it definitely isn't. Particularly if you want those sunset bars and all those kind of bucket list kind of things. You're going for that reason, I suppose, as well. You're going to go to see the sunset in these cool bars at night time, and you're going for all those experiences. So they do tend to add up.
And finally, Sarah, is there a time of year that you would recommend going to the Greek islands?
Well, really from about May to September, like the weather should be okay. July, August is probably the hottest, I suppose, so that everybody would know. But it's also the time where they have those really, really high winds, so the ferries can be quite sickening. And it's also the time where you get the most crowds. So I would say if you can avoid July, August, actually, and maybe, May, June, September, over the last few years, the weather has actually been quite good into October. Again, sure, no one can predict the weather anymore, but, the later in the season, the weather has been quite nice. So that could be a lovely time to go as well, and a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
But, again, it's hard to say. I'd say if you were to cherry pick, I'd say maybe June or September is probably the best. You should have good weather, and you shouldn't have too many crowds.
And will there be a bit of life still around that time? The way some holiday destinations, they become like a morgue almost, don't they, at certain times of the year?
Yeah, October, getting into October now, some of the places would close. They don't all open late, but the main key resorts would certainly be open. But everything would be open from May to September pretty much anyway. So yeah, you should be fine there. And a lot of the flights are starting in April and go on into October. So if you are kind of going really off peak like that, you just want to check the locations, because as you said, there's not much point if some of the restaurants and places aren't open. Just make sure, but the key big popular resorts will be. Most of the airlines in the UK and the tour operators now are trying to extend the season a little bit longer, and just going on the last few years, weather seems to be better later than earlier. October is better than April, for instance, generally speaking. Now, whether that's going to continue, we don't know, but that's probably a good tip, I suppose, to try and get reasonable prices off season.
Okay, well, Sarah has all her top tips there for island hopping in Greece, and they're on our website, thetravelexpert.ie. Thanks so much, Sarah. Chat to you soon.
Thanks, Trina.
Travel Saturday with Sarah and Ed with Canadian Sky. Fly to the heart of the Canadian Rockies, direct from Dublin to Calgary, and experience spectacular scenery and vibrant cities. Discover Canada in 2024 with CanadianSky.ie.